Welcome. Now, I've always believed that governments at their core are trying their best, or at least that's what they tell us, often with very serious faces and impressively designed podiums. But then you start looking a little closer and you find these, let's call them quirks. Situations where official policy seems to be doing the exact opposite of its stated intention. Like a firefighter enthusiastically handing out sparklers at a gasoline convention. It's not just mildly amusing, it's deeply, profoundly baffling. Tonight or today or whenever you're watching this in your algorithmically curated content bubble, we're diving headfirst into the glorious, often infuriating world of government contradictions. We'll explore how the very institutions meant to protect and serve us can simultaneously promote public health while bankrolling the industries that undermine it. We'll look at trade policies that promise prosperity for all but somehow end up shipping jobs overseas faster than you can say economic restructuring. And we'll marvel at the sheer acrobatic skill of different government departments working at cross purposes, like a badly choreographed ballet where everyone thinks they're the lead. And this isn't just about pointing fingers and having a laugh, though believe me, there will be moments where laughter is the only sane response. It's about understanding the real-world impact of these ironies. When official words and actions are constantly at odds, it erodes public trust, a commodity already scarcer than a politician who enjoys paying taxes. It makes effective policy-making about as likely as a unicorn winning the Kentucky Derby. So buckle up, because things are about to get consistently inconsistent. So, let's talk about health. Every government on Earth, or at least the ones with decent PR departments, will tell you they care deeply about your well-being. They'll launch shiny public health campaigns, plastering cities with posters urging you to eat your greens, exercise more, and generally avoid things that might send you to an early grave. You'll see earnest PSAs, perhaps featuring a moderately famous celebrity, looking concerned, advising you to make healthy choices. And you'll think, great, they're on my side. They want me to live a long, fruit-filled life, which is a lovely thought, isn't it? Almost as lovely as the idea that all those pigeons are actually government surveillance drone. Oh, wait. But then you peek behind the curtain and you find something a little off. It turns out that while one hand of the government is patting you on the back for choosing a salad, the other hand is discreetly slipping a fat wad of cash to the very industries pushing products that make that salad a distant, virtuous memory. I'm talking, of course, about subsidies. Billions, yes, billions of your taxpayer dollars funneled into supporting industries like tobacco and, perhaps more insidiously, the purveyors of ultra-processed, sugar-laden, nutritionally bankrupt food products. It's like your personal trainer also being your primary donut supplier. The sheer scale of this contradiction is breathtaking. Imagine a country spending, say, $50 million on an anti-smoking campaign, complete with graphic warnings and heartfelt appeals. Commendable, right? Now imagine that same country providing hundreds of millions, or even billions, in tax breaks, agricultural subsidies, or direct financial support to tobacco farmers or companies that churn out those very same cancer sticks. It's not just counterproductive, it's a masterclass in fiscal schizophrenia. The junk food industry, too, often benefits from subsidies on corn, soy, and sugar, the building blocks of many an unhealthy snack, far outweighing any budget for promoting whole, natural foods. The consequences, well, apart from making a mockery of public health initiatives, it creates a deeply confusing landscape for citizens. We're bombarded with messages to be healthy, yet the unhealthy options are often cheaper, more accessible, and aggressively marketed, partly thanks to government support. It's a system that effectively penalizes healthy choices for many. Health outcomes stagnate or worsen, healthcare costs balloon, and the public grows increasingly cynical. It's hard to take a government's health advice seriously when they're simultaneously investing in your potential demise, or at least your chronic illness. Ultimately, it begs the question, what is the actual priority here? Is it the health of the populace, or the health of certain politically influential industries? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a classic case of saying your health is our priority while whispering to big tobacco and king sugar, don't worry, we've got your back. It's less about public service and more about a very expensive, very damaging and very ironic balancing act. And frankly, the tightrope walker is starting to look a bit wobbly. International trade agreements. They're usually announced with tremendous fanfare, aren't they? Leaders in sharp suits shaking hands, flags artfully arranged, and soaring rhetoric about unprecedented economic growth, job creation, and a new era of global prosperity. The implication is clear. These deals are a win-win-win for everyone involved. Your country gets richer, other countries get richer, And you, personally, will soon be swimming in a Scrooge McDuck-style vault of newfound wealth. It's the economic equivalent of a magical unicorn that excretes gold doubloons. Who wouldn't want that? Except, much like that mythical unicorn, the promised universal benefits often fail to materialize, at least for a significant chunk of the population. While these agreements can indeed boost overall GDP and create opportunities for some, particularly multinational corporations and those at the top of the income ladder, they also have a rather nasty habit of hollowing out domestic industries and sending jobs scurrying to countries with lower labor costs and weaker regulations. The promise of new, better jobs to replace the old ones often turns out to be as reliable as a weather forecast in England, occasionally accurate, but mostly a precursor to disappointment and damp socks. And let's talk about economic fairness, another buzzword frequently trotted out during trade negotiations. The theory is that a rising tide lifts all boats. But what if some boats are luxury yachts and others are leaky, inflatable rafts with a slow puncture? What we often see is an exacerbation of income inequality. While consumers might get access to cheaper imported goods, which is nice, I suppose, if you still have a job to afford them, the benefits disproportionately flow to capital, while labor faces downward pressure on wages and increased job insecurity. It's less shared prosperity and more prosperity for shareholders, and maybe you can have a slightly cheaper t-shirt. The mechanisms behind this are often buried in thousands of pages of dense legal text, but they typically involve reducing tariffs, yes, but also harmonizing regulations, often to the lowest common denominator, and establishing investor-state dispute settlement systems that allow corporations to sue governments if new laws impact their profits. This can have a chilling effect on environmental protections, labor rights, and public health measures. It's a framework designed to facilitate the movement of capital and goods with maximum efficiency, often with social and environmental considerations treated as annoying afterthoughts, like the terms and conditions you scroll past without reading. So when governments champion these trade deals as unalloyed triumphs of economic policy, it's worth asking, growth for whom and at what cost? If economic fairness means a system where a factory worker in Ohio loses their job so that a CEO in New York can get a bigger bonus and a consumer can buy a slightly less expensive widget made by an underpaid worker in a country with lax safety standards, then perhaps our definition of fairness needs a serious update. It's a classic case of the stated goal, broad-based prosperity, being comprehensively undermined by the actual outcome for many. Now let's consider the magnificent, sprawling edifice that is modern government. It's a complex beast, comprised of numerous departments, agencies and subcommittees, each with its own specific mandate, budget and seemingly its own parallel universe. In theory, these various arms of the state are supposed to work in concert, a harmonious orchestra playing the symphony of good governance. In practice, however, it often resembles an orchestra where the brass section is actively trying to sabotage the strings, while the percussionist has set fire to the sheet music. This is the wonderful world of policy silos. You see, what frequently happens is that individual government departments pursue their objectives with a kind of tunnel vision, blissfully unaware or perhaps willfully ignorant of what other departments are doing. The Department of Environmental Protection, for instance, might be working diligently to implement regulations to curb carbon emissions and protect endangered wetlands. Noble stuff. You'd think they'd get a gold star and a pat on the back. But then just down the hall, or perhaps in another city entirely, the Department of Economic Development or Industry might be enthusiastically greenlighting new fossil fuel projects or offering massive incentives for a factory to be built right on top of those very same protected wetlands. The result is not just inefficiency. It's a spectacular form of self-sabotage funded by your tax dollars. One part of the government spends a fortune trying to solve a problem, while another part spends an equal or greater fortune actively making that problem worse. It's like trying to fill a bathtub with the drain wide open and also a fire hose blasting water out the window. The amount of public money wasted on these contradictory efforts could probably fund a small space program or at least buy everyone a pony. And who wouldn't want a pony? This lack of coordination isn't always accidental. Sometimes it's due to deeply entrenched bureaucratic cultures where interdepartmental communication is viewed with the same suspicion as a free lunch. Other times, it's the result of powerful lobbying groups influencing one department more than another, creating a situation where competing interests are essentially duking it out within the government itself. There's often no overarching vision, no central conductor, ensuring that all sections of the orchestra are playing from the same score or even in the same key. Each department is a fiefdom, fiercely guarding its territory and objectives. The public, naturally, is left bewildered, watching as their government champions environmental sustainability one day and then approves a new coal mine the next, or promotes healthy lifestyles while subsidizing sugar. This policy incoherence doesn't just undermine the effectiveness of specific initiatives, it breeds a deep-seated cynicism about government competence and intentions. It's hard to trust an entity that can't seem to agree with itself. It's less joined-up government and more government by a committee of people who've never met and actively dislike each other. So, there we have it. A whirlwind tour through the looking-glass world where governments valiantly declare their noble intentions while simultaneously and often quite lavishly funding the exact opposite. We've seen how public health campaigns can be kneecapped by subsidies for unhealthy industries, like a doctor prescribing cigarettes for a cough. We've witnessed trade deals sold as golden tickets to prosperity, often deliver a very different and far less shiny reality for many ordinary people, proving that trickle-down often means the rich get a waterfall and everyone else gets slightly damp. And we've peered into the bewildering internal dynamics of government itself, where different departments operate in splendid isolation, sometimes actively undermining each other's efforts, like rival siblings forced to share a very expensive, very important car. These aren't just isolated blips or amusing anecdotes. They represent a fundamental disconnect between rhetoric and reality, a pattern of contradiction that has serious consequences for all of us, not least for our faith in the institutions that are supposed to serve our best interests. Ultimately, if we want policies that actually achieve their stated goals, and if we want to rebuild some semblance of public trust, we need a monumental shift towards coherence and consistency. This means governments need to stop talking out of both sides of their mouths, to align their actions with their words, and to ensure their various departments are actually working towards common objectives rather than engaging in an expensive, taxpayer-funded tug-of-war. It's a tall order, I know, but perhaps aiming for policies that are at least less ironically self-defeating would be a good start. Because right now the level of irony is so high, it's practically a performance art piece, and frankly, the reviews are not great.